Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. That's actually a track by Ebo Taylor. Ebo Taylor is a Ghanaian Afrobeat legend. So if you know about Fela Kuti, you must know about Ebo Taylor. His music is phenomenal. Please go and check it out. So welcome back to my channel and hi to my new subscribers. If you haven't subscribed yet, please think about doing so. Remember to hit the notification bell. Here on this channel, we talk about everything to do with the African diaspora, music, life, love, everything in between. Today I wanted to talk about Namibia and I wanted to talk about reparations. Okay, so for a while now I've been thinking about where it would be nice to go. I've never been to South Africa before. I've never, so I was thinking about maybe Cape Town or Johannesburg, but for some reason, I thought, let me go to Namibia. It seems really quiet, peaceful place to go. Beautiful dunes, just beautiful wildlife, that kind of thing. And I thought, let me try something a bit different. Obviously, this is after after the pandemic decides to take a back seat and we can go out again. So anyway, as you do, I thought let me do a bit of research into Namibia. Now, some of you already know, and this is something I came across briefly a few years ago, but I haven't really given it much thought investigation. But many know that the first German concentration camps were not in Germany, right? The first German concentration camps were actually in Namibia 30 years prior to that, okay? Where thousands of Africans lost their lives in concentration camps, just to be clear. Okay, so what I thought to myself, let me look at that a little bit more, because the situation now is that Namibia actually do want reparations from Germany. Should they get those reparations? Are they entitled? So let's look a little bit more around that, okay? And it's also kind of an insight into although Germany looks like it's fantastic economically, well put together country, there's still that that dark sort of shady side that's still really not quite sorted out. Let's check it out. So in 1884 at the Berlin Conference, that was when European countries such as Britain, France, Germany, Portugal decided to carve up Africa and take bits for themselves. So, Britain and France had places like, Gambia or Nigeria. Germany had a few places actually. So they had Togo, they had Cameroon. They lost Cameroon to France and Britain later after the Second World War. But we just stick with what they had for now. So they had Togo. They also had Namibia. So Namibia was known as the Southwest Africa at the time. At that time, Germany, or shortly after that, Germany were having major issues on ground, major issues at home around hunger, poverty, overcrowding. So they decided, and it was a German geographer who did some research and decided that the human being needs space in order to thrive and become a fully functioning human being. So they decided that space is Namibia. We own Namibia, let's go over there. So the intention now was to go to Namibia and, bring other Germans over there and live a good life, invest in farming. The only issue was that people already lived there. And those people were, the Herero people that were there and other ethnic groups that lived there also. But that didn't stop the Germans, no. So the Germans decide, after they, tried the sort of carrot and stick approach, wasn't really working very well, things weren't moving fast enough, they decided they were going to go on a bit more of a brutal, attack, sort of brutal attempts, which they did. The Herero people, realizing that, hey, something deep is going on here, decided to rise up, and they did rise up. They rose up and they had a rebellion in 1904. It wasn't all of the Herero people, but it was some. The Germans, however, decided that, 6 months after that, they were going to get their own back. They drafted in new troops from Germany The Germans at the time didn't really mind because a lot of propaganda had been put out in Germany of these people who were not quite human, they were more bestial, and that was at the time of, you know, when race theory was really taking over, and people really believed that anyone who wasn't white, wasn't, you know, up to par, wasn't even fully human. So, you know, there wasn't too much resistance at that time. I mean, later on, there was some, you know, it did become a bit of a national scandal when some of the pictures got back. But by that time, it was too late. Now, one of the Herero chiefs at the time, after the rebellion, did write to, you know, the German government to say, you know, you don't need to fight us. You know, we're fully loyal to you guys, fully loyal to Germany. But they didn't accept that. As far as it was concerned, we don't care whether you're loyal or not. We want you gone. We want the space. We want to do some farming, right? So the Herero now, wisely, decided to move as far away as possible from these people, which was what they attempted to do, but it didn't quite work. Okay, so what we had now was a situation where the Herero were being pushed further and further into the desert, and, you know, they were being slaughtered, they were being herded into concentration camps. Many were being moved via carriage, very similar to the images that you would have seen, you know, in Germany 30 years later. It was happening right there in Namibia at the time. So I wanted to just take you a bit, you know, bring you a bit more closer to now, in that when I was thinking about going to Namibia, one of the places that I thought looked a bit odd to me was Windhoek. Windhoek is the capital of Namibia. Windhoek is the home of the first concentration camp. Okay? Thousands of Africans lost their lives in Windhoek. So the issue now is that you have a situation where generations of southern Namibian people, the Herero people in particular, want reparations from Germany. The Germans have since stated that they recognize that it was a genocide, but they're not willing to pay reparations. The Herero people, you know, many of them now, generations, like say 3 generations, so their great-great-great-grandparents would have been, you know, herded into concentration camps or, you know, sold into slavery. They live in, you know, in these reserves, like tribal reserves or reservations, and like the majority of the land is owned by like a handful of white farmers of the fertile land, and they're living, you know, in real barren lands. So they're saying that they want the Germans to pay reparations so they can buy their own land back. Imagine that, right? They want money to buy their own land back. I personally, if I was advising the German government, I would say, sounds like a reasonable ask to me. But for some reason, there's a bit of resistance. I don't know what that reason is. So what do you think? Do you think that, the Herero people and any people who suffered under the hands of the Germans should, be granted reparations? Should you still have monuments up? Right now there's a monument up on one of the mass graves of one German, colonel. Should those monuments still be there? And just to kind of link it together as well, many of the colonels who served in this genocidal system in Namibia went back to Germany, and for one in particular, he was the teacher of Adolf Hitler. And Adolf Hitler's really kind of heaped a lot of praise on him. And, you can argue that learned a lot from what had gone before. So if we can recognize the Holocaust, and we do, and rightly so, should we not also recognize, the genocide that took place, 30 years prior in Namibia? just something to think about. Okay, talk to you later.